Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of that business podcast. I'm here again with my co-host, Anthony Elias. How are you today, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm great, Callum. I'm excited to do this fourth podcast now. We're getting the ball rolling and we're going to be talking about our favourite books. So, yeah, how are you?
Good. I'm good, thank you. So as Ant just mentioned, we're going to be talking about our two favorite books, and then two that we'd like to read in the future. So far we've already done episodes on tips for staying productive, motivation, and the rise of TikTok. So go have a listen to them as well. Please bring us feedback on them as well. That would be great. But Ant, would you like to kick it off with our first book, please?
Yeah, so when I'm going to tell you guys like a bit about these books, I don't really want to spoil too much,
Hmm.
especially with the books that I've already read. So I'm not going to give too much detail, but I think I'll give like benefits or kind of value that I got from the book. I think that kind of works best.
Yeah.
So my first book is Black Box Thinking. And when I was first reading this, the first, I would say, 50, 60 pages were quite slow and quite boring. So it is a book that you have to read at least 100 pages to know if you're going to like. But after I got past that mark, I was like,
Yeah.
shit, this book is good, like proper good. And it
Yeah.
teaches you a lot of different ways of kind of seeing things and having different perspectives. And I'll give one of the examples they used. So they were basically talking about aviation and healthcare. And in obviously, like if the pilot makes a mistake and say loads of passengers die and the pilot dies, whatever, like the whole of the aviation industry, they look at that mistake and they learn from it. They see it as an opportunity to grow. And it reduces the chances of another mistake in the
Yeah.
future. But
Which
then
with
with healthcare,
minimization. Yeah.
with healthcare, it's like it showed the complete opposite because it like this book had I think like 50, 60 different studies, and it found that in healthcare, this is the complete opposite. So a lot of like doctors, they spend their whole life working on this one thing and they spend their whole life building up their career. And then say they make a big mistake, like to admit that mistake, you're gonna be like, shit, I've worked my whole life for this. And then like you'd feel like so bad. And that's why a lot of doctors and nurses, they always cover up mistakes or they say
Yeah.
it was like a different reason. And that's why so many mistakes are made in healthcare.
Well, that's very much versus to go on to a more psychological theory, the whole idea of id versus the ego. And that's very much them demonstrating the id there, which is kind of the more selfish part. And so they
Mm-hmm.
feel guilt, obviously, in what we call the ego, which is obviously the three parts of super ego as well, which is like the balance. So we'd say to that people tend to actually often be more ego based on
Mm-hmm.
like who go into healthcare. But we've
Mm-hmm.
found that often, as you said, when mistakes are made, they kind of go towards the more selfish aspect of things,
Mm-hmm.
which is obviously protecting their own backs and not the other way around. Is that fundamentally what you're getting at?
Yeah, no, pretty much everything in this book was about just getting rid of your ego. And obviously, like I said, I don't want to give away too much. Like, there's so much in this book. Like, there's so many different types of examples, industries, etc. But yeah, I'll give you guys like a quick overview. So the whole point of this book, in my opinion, is well, not in my opinion. I've already read it. So the whole like kind of overview or like value I got from this book was to see things different, and I
Yeah.
think that's really
Is it possible to have like a little synopsis, I suppose, of the book then? And then, as you said, also like the benefits from it, and also if there's anything you think that like how the reader should take away, what notes they should take away, that kind of thing.
So by synopsis, do you mean like overview?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay, I can't really give much of an overview because that would be giving away a lot. Like I already gave you the two examples of the aviation and healthcare. That was a big chunk of the book. And it just kind of goes into different industries and it kind of analyzes how each industry sees mistakes and how they look at mistakes.
Yeah.
And the benefits you'll take away from this book is that you'll realize that you shouldn't feed your ego and you shouldn't be scared of mistakes. That's kind of like the benefits I took away from it.
Yeah.
And if you do get that book, I'm telling you, it will take you maybe 2 or 3 weeks to read it. I mean, it took me 2 or 3 weeks to read. I'm not that quick of a reader, But if you do, I swear down, this will change the way you like see mistakes and everything. It's really good.
Yeah, I have to say personally, I haven't read it. It's on my list, but from what I've heard of and speaking about it before, I think it really shows the difference between having an ego and then having like confidence in it. Like, so having confidence in yourself and build up your own confidence, but don't let that turn into like cockiness and having an ego. So like, be
Yeah.
willing to admit mistakes fundamentally. All right,
Yeah.
so I'm going to kick it off with my first book, which is a book I've actually mentioned a couple of times on the podcast before. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. So Viktor Frankl is the father of logotherapy, and he was actually he developed a lot of his theories while he was imprisoned in the concentration camps under Nazi Germany. I think he was imprisoned in 4, and he demonstrates how people show amazing acts of bravery, but also how people just give up. And then he kind of shows he really is a big believer in the Nietzsche quote. Anyone who so any man who has a why can bear any how. That was a bit of a paraphrase, but that's really fundamentally what the book gets at. And then after that, it teaches different aspects of things. So what I took away from it is so from the actual concentration camp area, there's a story. I'm not going to give too much away, but there's a little section when he's talking about being on a march, when they had to march their work sites, and he talked about how he was just thinking the whole time of his wife and how like love is like a massive impact on that thing. And then for me, that was like definitely a game changer. Which I really feel like if you have a meaning to your life, it's definitely to love like what you do, like your career wise. Obviously, love your friends and family, so your personal relationships. Love the activities you're going to be carrying out. But it also talks about finding like happiness in your suffering, or not so much happiness, but also like meaning, and that an abundance of pain can actually bring an abundance of opportunity and an abundance of joy in the future if you really just use it to get through the hard times, to get through to the good times, as you are going to have hard times in life. That's a guarantee. That's part of being a human. So, and that's often where we grow the most, and it shows the difference between those who don't grow in that and ultimately died in the camp, unfortunately, and those who are able to push through it and able to like smash life in post-war Germany as well. He often talks about how he'd be able to turn like people like these suicidal victims and in like half an hour or so find their meaning through like he talks about tragic optimism, which is where you're kind of when you a lot of people are grieving or going through things such as people going into COVID and like the pandemic, so it's perfectly suitable to now, and knowing that pretty much not kind of wishing it would end straight away even though they know it won't. That's known as a tragic optimism. So you're optimistic for something you know is not going to happen. And then you also mentioned how one of the biggest sufferings that a human can go through is not knowing the end to something. And again, that's the same for a lot of people not knowing the end to quarantine. So I think it's highly applicable as well to now. And it's only about 150 pages. I'm not going to go. He's got loads of theories on neurosis, so I won't go through too much of it now. I really want you guys to discover and go on your own journey when you read that book. But certainly the best book I've ever read.
Hmm. So I think were you trying to get out like the having like purpose in your life? Was that
Yeah,
like?
so yeah, if
Mhm,
you pretty much you're gonna whatever you go through, if you have a why, as
mhm,
Nietzsche said, who was a famous German, I can't actually remember his exact occupation to be honest.
mhm.
But yeah, Frankl based a lot of his work off him. And then there's loads of different things such as and then like he says how to there's people have an existential vacuum, and once that vacuum's filled, so it's not so much the pursuit of happiness, but more when you kind of realize what your purpose you'll find ensuing happiness.
Yeah.
Is really to find a meaning in your purpose to life, whatever that may be, whether and that doesn't have to have a lot of money attached to it. And then that will really bring you happiness, which as for me has
Mhm.
always been the ultimate goal.
Yeah, yeah. I think that is really important actually. I haven't read that book, but I kind of already know the importance of having like a way to your goal. So having a clear purpose. Because if you don't, like any single distraction is just going to put you off course,
Yeah,
and obviously you
exactly.
don't want that. And whether that's with like business, whether it's with like relationships in life, anything you do, you need a clear vision. You need to have like a tunnel vision, and I think that's what purpose gives you. And if you don't
Yeah,
have that purpose, then yeah.
exactly. It's also he talks about which would be quite relevant for now as well. A lot of people are obviously being made unemployed by COVID, He talks about something called unemployed depression. He used an exact term for it, which I can't remember off the top of my head. But this is where people feel like useless, as in not employed, which should though be associated like usefulness in society. So he says that
Yeah.
when you go and volunteer for something, which could be a lot, anyone who's feeling down at the moment once they've lost their job, could be a great idea to go volunteer somewhere. And there's a good chance that you'll be feeling like you're using your time more purposefully, and
Mhm.
therefore like you kind of your meaning starts to come back. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah. So shall I go on to my second book now?
yeah. Go ahead, Ant.
Okay, so my next book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. So this book is a really interesting book because it's not like all the other books that when they tell a story or it's like a novel or whatever, or they give a perspective, it's not that it's only one side to something. This book is interesting in that it kind of takes two perspectives and two minds and merges it into one like story. So
Mm-hmm.
it was about this kid. He had two dads. So one of his dads was his actual dad, and he was the poor dad. And then the second dad was a friend's dad, but he would always like talk with the dad. He got advice from the dad, and throughout the whole book, he was explaining like the two sides of the dads, and he was like contrasting how they think, how they act, and it gives you such a clear contrast between how rich people think, how poor people think. And
Yeah.
one of the main things I learned from this book, which is like, it's the first thing that I kind of that caught my eye. I was like, shit, that really is how like some people do think. And it was when he was talking about, so say someone wants to get a car, right? The
Mm.
poor dad would be like, oh, I can't afford that. And straight away, his brain would be shut down and he wouldn't think of ways to get it. Whereas the rich dad, he would be like, how can I get it? So he gets his brain working, he gets everything in his brain to come to real life. It gets him doing rather than sleeping or whatever. And that's a really important thing. So a lot of the book is about mindset, it's about the way you think, and it talks about really small things. It's not like the massive things in life. People think that, oh, if you want to make a load of money, it's going to happen like one day, it's just magically going to happen. You're going to start making loads of money.
That's not
It's
how
not.
it works.
Yeah, it's a gradual process. You got to learn every single day. You got to become that one bit better every single day. And
Also,
that's kind of what
yeah.
the book kind of hints at. It's all about mindset and changing.
Also, yeah, you don't want to get all your money at once anyway, because then you need to go on stages like, as Ty Lopez talks about. He talks about going up the belts of like financial. So you start at 10, like start 1,000, 10,000, and go up to like whatever 100 million or whatever. So you can
Yeah, yeah.
figure out like how to manage at each stage. Was if you think about majority of lottery winners lose their money. Majority of NBA players are bankrupt, well not bankrupt, but broke within 5 years. So it just shows that yeah, you need to know how to manage your money, and this is really good on teaching financial aspects of things.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it is really important because getting money straight away, you're not going to go through the process of kind of learning how to get it. If you get
Exactly.
it all at once, number one, you're not going to learn in the future how to get it again. So if you do lose it for like, I don't know, for some reason, you're not going to get it back. And if you don't go through the process, you're not going to kind of learn how to deal with each stage. You're not going to learn how to keep it. And that's actually another thing that Robert T. Kiyosaki talked about in Rich Dad Poor Dad. He was talking about there's several rules for money that you have to kind of obey,
Yeah,
and some of them were, I don't want to give too much away again, but one of them was kind of protecting your money. And if you don't go through the process of getting money, you're not going to know how to kind of protect it. And there's like special ways to kind of keep your money safe, like from the law, from other people,
I mean
etc.
maybe yeah. When we should say when you say keep it from the law, we're not talking about tax evasion or tax
No, no,
avoidance.
no, no, no. I'm not talking about anything
Yeah,
illegal. Don't
we
worry.
just
No,
should
no,
say
it's
that.
everything he mentions as a book is completely legal. It's just about kind of protecting your money and safeguarding it and then building it up as well. And obviously, if you don't go through that process of making it, then you're not going to have the mindset. You're not going to know how to do it. You're just not going to be able to keep it really.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I very much. I mean, this is a book I've often given out multiple times now as a gift. I think it's fantastic. I think it's also worth mentioning the dad, actually, his own dad. was actually a middle class gentleman. He was a government employee, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily a situation of being broke, but he was unable to get to the level where he'd actually not have any financial worries.
Yeah.
And he actually told Robert to go talk to to go talk to the other dad to actually teach him, as he was a business owner, whereas he wouldn't personally know or have the answers to Robert's questions. So I think there's also a great advice on reaching out to people and expanding your network
Mm-hmm.
to kind of find, yeah, it will take you a couple of attempts maybe to find the person you need to talk to really
Mm-hmm.
grow your ability and to be like that mentor to you.
Yeah.
So I think that's key as well.
Yeah. So quickly, last point I want to say, gonna just to close things off with this book, is that it's not all about money. So if you're poor, it's not necessarily money poor, because like you mentioned, the poor dad in this, he was still making a decent amount of money. Like he still had the whole family, etc. But he was poor in the mind
Mm.
because he wasn't thinking the correct way. And that's kind of what the book kind of gets at. So yeah, if you want to move on to your second book, Callum.
So my second book I'd recommend is Tribe of Mentors by Tim Ferriss. So what Tim did in this was get around 100 people, 100 mentors from a range of fields. He has athletes, movie stars, businessmen, chefs, philanthropic people. There's a range of people, and he's asked them a number of questions, such as what book do you read, your favorite failure, and he's your best investment, a range of ones like that. And he's used that to really give you different approaches to different situations. Because I'm a huge believer that if you want to be successful, you're going to have loads of different perspectives on how to approach a situation. So if you have the same ones over and over and over again, there will be a fail point for that approach. So you need those different approaches. So this gives you a massive like landscape of approaches you can take from. And it's good as well as he gives a sort of disclaimer at the start that not all of this will be useful for you. Some profiles will be fantastic, some will be useless. And as I talked about getting advice from the right people, and I feel that as a great way, it allows you to actually know how to filter advice as well and take what's going to be beneficial to you, and then also throw out any information that's just not going to be useful. But it also and then it shows you how to take whatever from a number of different fields and then apply it to your field as well, and really how you can cross advice. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic book. I'd highly recommend it. It's a long read. It's about 600 pages, but it's certainly worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really liked one of the things you mentioned about that book. So it was about having different perspectives.
Yeah.
And I think that is crucial when it comes to success in anything, even in life, business, whatever, because you have to go into everything with an open mind. You don't know what's going to work, what isn't. And that's why with like the 100 mentor thing, you get to see like not just one or 10 people's like perspectives or ideas or problems, failures, etc. You get to see 100 different people. And that's quite a big sample. So you get to kind of see the different things that people experience, and then you can pick and choose what you think will work and
Yeah,
test
exactly.
out. That's what's really important because, like you said, I think you mentioned it a few minutes ago, you don't know if one thing's going to work for you. And that's why it's important to test out, because one thing might work for someone, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think it's key as well. This book, as it sort of teaches you, I feel it actually taught me when you need to be selfish in life and when you need to have a more philanthropic and giving approach. Because obviously, you see people who are maybe taking a more individualistic approach to their life and really use that to drive their success. And then people have found like kind of their purpose we were talking about with the man searching meaning in helping others. So I find this is just, it gives you like that kind of different approaches, allows you to know how to act in a situation, both from different perspectives, but also from different like moral standpoints, I suppose. So yeah, I think it's very good. As I said, highly recommend it. Right, and do you want to kick on to the first book you want to read?
Okay, so now that we've gone over the two books that I've already read and they're some of my favorite ones, we're going to go on to two books that I'm yet to read. However, they're in my list to read.
Like
And the
which list?
first one is called Self Discipline: How to Stop Being a Child and Beat Procrastination. And that is quite a long title, but what kind of drew me to the book was the fact that procrastination is everywhere and we don't even realize it. Like, not just like deciding to lie down and go on your phone for another 10 minutes. That is procrastination, but that's what people think is like the main one and the only one. But procrastination is literally everything. Like if you decide to do one task over another bigger one, or one that you kind of like need to do now,
More priority task sort of thing.
procrastination as well. That counts. And that's kind of like the idea that kind of drew me to procrastinate this book, Self-Discipline, How to Beat Procrastination. It's the idea that like there's so many things that I do which can be classed as procrastination, but I don't even know about.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to educate myself on what I'm doing wrong so that I can stop doing it and start getting work done.
Yeah, so we actually talked about in a past podcast, getting your tasks done first thing in the morning, the most important ones.
Yeah.
The whole idea that you might procrastinate up to them then. So I
Yeah.
think that definitely draws into that. But it's also, this is something I also want to read as well. And yeah, it's just, I think everyone does procrastinate in ways they don't even know, because everyone kind of, as you said, associates it with going on Instagram for half an hour instead of starting your work or watching another YouTube video or something like that. When
Yeah.
in reality, it could be, oh, you want to do this task because you're going to find it easier than the harder one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a huge form of
Yeah.
procrastination. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was one of the things that I think it had on the back of the book. It was the summary of the book. It said how there's so many different ways and types of procrastination that we don't even know about. And if you don't know about something, then it doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like to you, it doesn't exist. So that's kind of the main point. You kind of have to come to a realization and realize that, like, shit, I really am procrastinating, and I got to educate myself on how to not and get work done.
Yeah. I'd 100% agree with you on that one, Ant. 100%. Okay, I'm going to kick it off with my first book, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And there's really four, I haven't yet to read this, and I'm extremely excited to. So I won't really want to, I mean, fortunately, these ones we haven't read first, we can't spoil. But there's four key components to this book on how to win friends. One is don't criticize, condemn, or complain. So it's really always have a positive outlook. Because if you really have a negative outlook, then you're limiting yourself to both possibilities, but also limiting yourself to like possible relationships. I believe, as I said, we're yet to read this, so we do apologize if we're slightly off at the point. Another one is give honest and sincere appreciation. There's a great quote. I think it's by Corfus, and but I could be wrong. Who says, an idiot will get upset if you correct them, whereas a wise man will appreciate it. And I really think that's where give honest and sincere appreciation comes in. There's arousing other person that an ego you want, and there's also never show others that you're not interested in what they have to say. I'm just trying to remember these off the top of my head. Sorry. Yeah, never show others you're interested when you're always show interest, basically. Because even if you're not interested in something they're saying at that moment, they might have something very interesting to say like 5 sentences down the line. And even on top of them, you never know what kind of a value they can provide to you in the future. So don't just write them off, sort of thing. I think that's key.
Yeah. I think networking is really important, and the more people you know, the more you're gonna earn. Pretty much. I don't know if that's a quote or not. I'm pretty sure I've heard that somewhere, but
the more you learn, the more you earn.
So the more people you're gonna know, you're just gonna have more connections, and obviously, the closer and tighter knit your relationships are, it's gonna be a lot better. Obviously, for everything you do, say you're in business, and I don't know, you need a supplier in something. I don't know. I'm kind of trying to think of a scenario off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Say you need a supplier of some sort of product. If you don't have connections, then you're not going to have to supply the product. But if you do, then think about it. You're going to have so many different options and different like varieties of products to supply because you know the people. And that's kind of just like one example of why networking and having a lot of friends is going to help you.
Yeah, I think we are actually going to launch a podcast soon on networking in the next few weeks. So please do like subscribe or whatever for that. But I really feel that networking is just key. You can't really do it all on your own. And second off, you'll get a massive amount of like favors and benefits from being able to both do favors for people and take favors, as this will allow you to like boost like your kind of advantages you can take from life and put you in better situations than you would be otherwise. As there's a great thing. You're always two connections away from someone useful, something like that. Something along those kind of phrases. So it really shows you just have to get out there, network, and also really you have to. As anything we say, you have to put your skills into actions. There's no use us just telling you all this and you just sitting on it. So you need to make sure that you really do take action. And on this one, you need to go out and really practice how to actually win friends, or not necessarily. And that doesn't always mean like, oh, you're going to be best mates with this person. It more means to be able to provide value to them and then also provide value to you. Right.
Mhm.
And do you want to go on to your next book?
Yeah, so the second book that I recommend is called The Compound Effect. And this book, I've had the read of it as well, like the summary of it, and it sounds interesting because there's a few things that I've already learned about compounding. And it's the idea that if you're consistent with like improvement, growth, learning, and like gaining new experiences over the long term, it will build up so much more compared to if, say, for 1 week you're working your ass off, you're doing so much work, and then the next like 2 weeks you're not doing anything.
Well,
So in the long term, if you add small bits and then kind of compound the effect of them, they're going to turn into something much more exponential compared to if you're not. And there's a saying, I think it's improving 1% every single day is going to lead to, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was like a really significant amount compared to if you improve 10% every like several days. I
yes,
can't
the whole
remember.
idea of compound interest. And
Yeah.
there's a great if you want a numerical advantage, if you got given $1 million or you got literally a cent which doubled every single day for a month, you'd be much better off taking the cent that doubled every day, which you'd have over $10 million. So it really shows that, as Ant said, it's the idea of Kaizen as well, isn't it? Like if you just build up a little bit and continuous improvement will really boost you in the long run as well and give you more longevity and actually like structured process rather than just boom sort of thing, rather than it just being there and there being no structure to what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of the main point I was kind of getting at. And that's what kind of, again, drew me to the book is the idea that there's certain things that if you learn about, it kind of changes the way you act and the way you think of acting. And I've realized this as well with when I read books. When I read like 15 pages every single day, but I'm consistent with it, I finish a book a lot quicker compared to if I read, say, 30 pages like every like 3 or 4 days. You get me? So that
Yeah.
compound effect is so much more powerful. And I know that there's a few theories in this book and a few different like kind of tactics on how to kind of improve faster. And that's what kind of grabbed my eye.
Yeah, I'd very much agree with that. I think with all of these ones, these are ones that are special picked as well from what could be numerous books. So I
Yeah.
do very much feel that, especially, and if you don't read as well, it's worth saying, don't necessarily think you suddenly have to go from reading like for 1 minute, to 2 hours a day. Literally start with like 2 pages a day. And this is the idea Anne just spoke about compound interest of gradual improvement. And you'll find you're reading fast and able to fly through these books in no time. That was definitely the case for me. Okay, so the next book I definitely want to read. This has been on my wish list for a long time, actually. I've been reading other books and I'm just about to get to it, which I'm highly excited for, is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill would actually be, if you put it in today's money, his net worth, he'd be the richest person ever. And he really thought about that. He had 13 principles for growing rich, and these included definitely mastering the subconscious mind and the brain. And he really is just about thinking properly and think it is similar to actually, I suppose, on a note to Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it's really about being organized in what you do and having, as you said, structured process and being able to create like the right scenarios in your head, which you can then bring to the forefront and using that to really boost yourself forward. So yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a key book for me to read, and definitely I'm sure it will boost my life massively.
Yeah, so Think and Grow Rich is actually one book that I've already read,
Oh,
and I
perfect.
can tell you this book is amazing as well because the principles that it teaches are so important, and you realize what you do wrong. And one of the actual principles, I don't want to give away too much because obviously you haven't read it, and some other people haven't
I'm
read
yet
it,
to.
but
Yes.
one of the things is called auto suggestion, and this is the idea of using repetition to basically force it basically forces to change your subconscious mind, and obviously your subconscious mind is what truly leads you to success because it's what you do without even thinking. And through auto suggestion you kind of reshape and remodel the way your subconscious mind thinks. And yeah, again, I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, so that's kind of the main point that I really liked about that book.
Okay, yeah. So we're coming to the end now. So, and do you have any more books actually just you'd like to recommend before we wrap this up?
uh Another book that I recommend is Outliers by Gadwell. I've completely forgotten his name now. I don't know how to say his name. It's by
Uh,
Malcolm Gadwell. Gadwell, yeah, I think it's that. It's this one. I'm
Gladwell.
halfway through it, and I can tell you this book is sick. So I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, and that's definitely a good one. The other two I'd recommend would be The Tipping Point by Michael Gladwell. And this is that main idea of how like small things can make a huge difference, and small changes to your behavior can really overall and actually in the small changes in the micro can massively boost you in the macro. And it's definitely key. And the other one I'd highly recommend is Drive, which kind of gives a different perspective on what motivates us and what boosts us in life. So I don't want to give too much away there, but definitely both of them. So Drive by Daniel Pink and The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. So it might be the author you just mentioned actually for Outliers.
Yeah, yeah.
So same author, different book. So yeah, I'd also recommend those two. So again, as we usually say on every podcast, if you guys could give us kind of criticisms for how you feel it went. Also, if you could leave suggestions for books that you think are worth reading, any we haven't mentioned, that would be highly appreciated. And we look forward to hearing from you guys. And also, any questions you have about us on any topic, please let us know, and we'll smash through them and try and give you the clearest answer we can. Okay, so thank you very much. I've been Callum Haywood. I've been with Anthony Elias. This is That Business Podcast, and goodbye.